Today we are going to cover the European part of World War II. On September 1st, 1939, Germany invaded Poland and thus World War II was started. Germany was using a type of warfare called blitzkrieg, which was the idea of a very fast and rapid bombardment of their enemy through the use of aircrafts and fast-moving tanks. The participants in the war would be the Allies, which consisted of Great Britain, France, and after 1941 the United States, versus the Axis powers, which consisted of Germany, Italy, Japan, and the Soviet Union up until 1942. Japan's government made an alliance with the Axis powers, the idea being that Japan would take over Asia and occupy America while Hitler was busy in Europe. After the September invasion of Poland and the declaration of war was issued, Hitler did little through the winter. The war was restarted in the spring of 1940 with the invasion of the northern European countries and France. It only took about a week for the German army to take over Paris and thus the government of France. But there were still pockets of resistance in southern France. Those who resisted were led by General Charles de Gaulle. Essentially, though, Great Britain was on its own in order to keep Germany in line. In 1940, former Prime Minister of Great Britain, Neville Chamberlain, stepped down as Prime Minister, and Winston Churchill took over. His nickname was the Bulldog. President Roosevelt respected the American people's want to stay out of World War II, but at the same time, he felt like the U.S. needed to help its allies. He first issued a less restrictive neutrality agreement in late 1939 with a cash-and-carry policy. This said that a belligerent, or Great Britain in this case, would be allowed to buy U.S. arms as long as they were paid with cash and they used their own ships to carry the arms. This continued until Great Britain ran out of available cash, so the U.S. went to a policy known as Lend-Lease in 1941. This changed the requirements to lend arms to Great Britain in return for leases on certain bases around the world. Germany would continue its constant blitzkrieg assault on Great Britain. This was a very scary time for those living in Great Britain. They would routinely practice air raid procedures. President Roosevelt was getting increasingly worried that the U.S. would eventually be pulled into World War II. In preparation of this event, Roosevelt and Churchill had a secret meeting on a ship off the coast of Newfoundland. Here they wrote what was known as the Atlantic Charter, which affirmed what their peace objectives would be when the war ended. The peace terms would include self-determination, no territorial expansion, and free trade. Operation Barbarossa was arguably Hitler's biggest military mistake. This was the German code name for the invasion of the Soviet Union. Neither Hitler nor Stalin really trusted the other. Both had ideas and plans to cross the other. Hitler was just the first to act. Soon after, Roosevelt promised assistance to the Soviets. This would also push Stalin to leave the Axis powers and join the Allies. The three leaders of Churchill, Roosevelt, and Stalin would later be called the Big Three.